York, we begin this show with the arrest of those two judges over their handling of illegal immigrants. Caroline Elliot has the details from Chicago. Hi, Caroline.
Good morning, Griff. Instead of the bench yesterday, we saw two different judges in the defendant's seat, both now facing charges related to obstruction. So we'll start right here in the Midwest with Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan. The criminal complaint says Judge Dugan knew ICE agents were going to arrest an undocumented migrant after his hearing, so she decided to step in. His name is Eduardo Flores Ruiz, and he's an undocumented migrant from Mexico facing battery charges. In part of the complaint, investigators say the judge took him through a door which leads to a non-public part of the courthouse. Ruiz then made it outside, and ICE agents had to chase him down the street. Now, a week later, federal agents arrested Judge Dugan at the courthouse. And during her first court appearance Friday, her attorney said she, quote, wholeheartedly regrets and protests her arrest, adding it was not made in the interest of public safety. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says this should serve as a reality check.
We could not believe, actually, that a judge really did that. They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not.
In New Mexico, former Judge Joel Cano appeared in federal court yesterday. He's charged with tampering with evidence in the investigation of his alleged harboring of an undocumented migrant. Cano resigned last month after federal agents raided his home and took into custody this alleged member of Tren de Aragua and two other Venezuelan men who had been staying on Cano's property. Judge Cano says he saw no signs of gang affiliation, and in a letter to the New Mexico Judicial Standards Commission, he says, quote, I cannot help but feel that the capture of these boys is just another unfortunate addition to the current nationwide effort to apprehend, detain, and deport anyone not born in the U.S. Meantime, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says both of these arrests should go to show no one is above the law. Griff.
Caroline Elliot in Chicago. Caroline, thank you. Here to break down these startling cases, former acting ICE director and former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, you're the perfect person to talk about these cases because you've been on the ICE side of this and you've been on the prosecutor side for more than a decade in the state of Virginia. And there was one tweet in the last 24 hours that got my attention from Senator Amy Klobuchar, who also was a former prosecutor. She says this is not normal. The administration's arrest of a sitting judge in Wisconsin is a drastic move that threatens the rule of law. While we don't have all the details, this is a grave step and undermines our system of checks and balances. And she may be right, Jonathan, in one respect. It's not normal to have sitting judges harbor alleged Tren de Aragua gang members and give them access to guns, or for a Wisconsin judge to hear a domestic violence illegal alien case and then in front of the victim's family basically shield that illegal alien from ICE. Your reaction?
Yeah, Senator Klobuchar's reaction is really unconscionable because these actions of these judges are absolutely outrageous and lawless. This idea that the Democrats are in any way condoning this behavior is shocking to me because you have the New Mexico judge not only harboring a Tren de Aragua member who had firearms in the home, but he was destroying evidence, or at least alleged, by smashing cell phones to prevent the authorities from getting evidence. So it's absolutely outrageous, particularly for a judge and for the Democrats to be saying anything. And then the Wisconsin judge is even worse because she knew he was an illegal alien. And what's important, he was on charges for battery. He had also been deported before. So coming back, he was committing a federal felony. And she shepherds him out the door. And she's only facing 2 obstruction charges. But the other thing she has coming down the pike, I believe, is a federal alien harboring charge because she knew he was an illegal alien and she was taking steps to shield him from detection. Absolutely outrageous. The fact that anyone would defend these judges is beyond me. I would think this would be 100% of everyone would say this is unacceptable regardless of your views on immigration.
Well, and that's the insight that we want to get from you from a legal perspective. So Dugan's facing unlawful obstruction and concealment. At least that's what the charges are now. Does the administration have a solid case here? I'm reminded, by the way, if you recall back, I believe believe it was 2018 up in Massachusetts, when another judge, Shelley Joseph, was arrested for this very sort of thing. Now, she ended up pleading out, and her situation is before the state's Supreme Court to see if she's going to be barred from the bench. But this isn't unprecedented.
Yeah, it's unprecedented, but it actually seems fairly easy to prove, and here's why. Because she had a confrontation with the ICE agents, apparently out in the hall, and then took these actions to shepherd this person out through like a side door or jury door. So it shows she knew this guy was an illegal alien, and she was trying to prevent him from being arrested. So that's classic obstruction, classic alien harboring, and it seems like her justification is she's just allowed to do it because she doesn't like the immigration laws. So in terms of proof, this is probably as strong as you can get. Whether or not ultimately how it gets resolved or what a jury does is always the open question, but quite strong. And then the New Mexico judge of smashing cell phones, that's also classic obstruction. You're destroying evidence. So those things are quite strong. And if people did those, which is important to know, if people did similar actions in other types of cases who were not judges, they get charged as well. So there's no reason these judges should be treated more leniently. There's quite a good argument they should be treated with at least the same standard or a higher standard as everyone else.
So I think it's worth pointing out, Jonathan, we have had a number of Democrats, not just Amy Klobuchar, talking about demanding the rule of law. Take a listen here of some of that recent incidences.
In this country, no one is above the law.
You can't just say, okay, because someone was president or someone is a candidate that you're above the law. Everyone is under the law.
No one is above the law.
Fact is, no one is above the law.
Jonathan, do these judges simply think they're above the law?
It seems like it, and it seems like these Democrats think they're above the law. And remember, they've always acted this way with respect to immigration laws. They've always treated them as like they don't apply. When Biden was in office, when Mayorkas was in charge of the border, they didn't enforce the law because they didn't agree with it. So this is so outrageous, the conduct, the reaction from the Democrats, but it's actually typical because if you look at what they really want to do, which is to have open borders and amnesty, and every action they've taken over the past 4 years indicates exactly that. They're being entirely consistent with their position on that, but inconsistent with their position on the rule of law, because if the rule of law applies to all January 6ers and Donald Trump and all those cases, but then judges that don't want to, violate the law because they hate our immigration policy, you can't have it both ways. They're trying to, but they frankly don't care. They just want nobody to be deported at this point.
And quickly, Jonathan, before we run out of time, I just want to turn back to that Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, the alleged MS-13 gang member deported to El Salvador. Homeland Security sources telling Fox this week that he was previously pulled over while driving a car that belonged to a confessed human smuggler, while Democrats continue to rally around him. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it's also interesting watching the Democrats change their narrative, because he was Maryland man, Maryland father, and now the new narrative is just, we are the party of due process, because it's sort of unraveling. The evidence that he's a gang member will be, I think, quite strong. The domestic violence issues and the fact that he's appears to be trafficking illegal aliens, which is also a federal felony, at least from the surface, and the reports seem to be paints a very bad picture of this person, and certainly somebody we don't want back in our country. And I think if he does come back, depending on how this thing works out, the administration will deport him again and detain him, because everything that required him to remain here no longer applies, and he should be never be set foot in this country, at least outside of a holding cell. And
just a quick answer, because this is the debate. Has he gotten due process?
He's gotten a lot of due process within ICE. He was ordered removed. He appealed that, ordered removed again. They just said you can't deport him to El Salvador. So if he is brought back, the only process would be they would probably, put a new proceedings would commence, and they would just say the reasons he couldn't be deported no longer exist. But he's gotten quite a lot of process, much like all of these aliens have gotten. So, and again, this is somebody that they found, a judge found, and a second judge found that he should be deported. So there's no question about that.
We'll see where it goes. Jonathan Fahey, thank you as always for your insight. Have a good weekend.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.